Hello, and welcome to the Rating ARI Storage Solution video series. Well, what we're going to cover today in our demo is we're actually going to improve our system's performance. We're not just going to improve it, we're going to actually increase it quite significantly by adding just two SSDs. Now over here we have a storage pool A and a storage pool B. We're going to be focusing on storage pool A, and what we're going to do is we're going to take two SSDs and we're going to add the two SSDs live into our storage pool A. So let's look at the system here, and on the back end side you will see that we have a 4U56. It's not fully populated, but the majority of its drives are 3 terabyte 7K drives. And what we have here is we have two SSDs drive that I've entered, and we're going to go ahead and select these and add them into our existing pool A. So this pool A that you see over here, which is now all blue or all archive drives, will gain a small portion of the red performance SSD tier. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and click the pools, and under the pools we're going to go ahead and click action, add a disk group. We're going to associate that with pool A. We're going to call this one SSD RAID 1 pool A, device number 1 for the SSDs. We're going to make this RAID 1. I'm going to go ahead and select these two SSDs that I have here. Click add. And that's in the background going to go ahead and create this RAID level 1 into our pool A. There you go. We'll click it over here, and we'll be able to see our 7K RAID 6 A1 device, which we've created before. And this is the SSD RAID 1 pool A device number 1, which is the two SSDs that we currently have here. And you can see the system is actually preparing these two drives to allow access to them. Let's go back to the home screen, and in this home screen you'll be able to see that storage pool A, where we've had all archive drives, only the blue portion, we now have the blue portion, and we also have an addition of the red portion, which is our performance tier. Now in addition to that, I'd like to add one more thing to that, is I'm actually running an iometer test. And this iometer test is currently running at about 300 IOPS per second, and it's got about 100 or 105 milliseconds of latencies. Now this is all running on our 7K drives, or our archive tier. So what we want to show you is we're going to pause this video for a little bit, probably something around the 25 minutes mark, until the SSDs are fully initialized. But once they're going to be initialized, and you got to remember this is all done live, the application will still running, the iometer will keep running, we'll gain a significant increase in performance and will reduce the latency times significantly. It's going to be more than 10x probably. So what we're going to do now is we're going to show you a few things. Iometer, the test that we are running is 100% write, 100% random on a 4K block size. We really want to stress this test and stress this system. Now again, the 300 IOPS that you're seeing right now and the 110 milliseconds of latencies, this is all done through the archive tier as you see here. So you see the tier IOPS, this is all coming from here. And the reason this is happening is because if I go to my pools, you'll see that the pool SSD is still preparing, so it's still not completed. Now after the preparation, it's going to go into initialization, and once the initialization is complete, we'll come back, we'll pause the video, we'll come back after it's completed, and once we come back you'll see a significant improvement in performance. The number of IOPS is probably going to go to around 5,000 IOPS from 260 or from 300, and the latencies is going to significantly be reduced. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and pause the video, and we'll come back in about 20 to 30 minutes. So here we are back about 30 minutes from our pause time. What we actually ended up doing is we let the pool complete its initialization for the SSD volumes, the SSD drives. And here is the SSD drives in pool A, and you can see that the current job is actually completed. Let's go back into our home screen, and in our home screen you'll be able to see that we have storage pool A, we got the blue archive portion, we got the red performance portion, and you can see that this is a grayed out or a darker version of this red performance, this actually means that the entire volume right now is being served out of the SSD. The reason it's showing that is because it was actually on the archive portion, and once the SSD drives were successfully initialized, the data started moving into the SSD. And what we also see here is our tier IOPS now is all being served from the SSD tier. Now let's go ahead and look at IOmeter for a second. Let's see where we are. So we were at about 300 IOPS range and about 100 milliseconds of response times or latencies. Look at where we are now. We're at above 10,000 IOPS and we're below 3 milliseconds of latencies. So that's a pretty significant improvement for adding just 2 SSDs. Now let's keep in mind a few things here. We did this live. We did not have to stop the application. We stuck 2 SSDs in. We added them into our pull A, initialized them. As soon as the initialization was completed, data automatically started to transfer into the SSD, and IOPS is being served on this very significant workload, which is 100% write and 100% random on a 4K block size, is all being served from the SSD portion. And that's what gained us that significant improvement of above 10,000 IOPS and below 3 milliseconds of latency. So that's a pretty significant improvement for a very cost-efficient upgrade such as adding 2 SSDs. I'd also like to mention a few other things. The most important one is that our ARI storage solution automated tiering is done uniquely versus the competition. We move our data on a 5-second interval, so every block that would get hot will be moved into the SSD on a 5-second interval. So we will wake up every 5 seconds, evaluate the data, and move it into the SSD or out of the SSD based on the performance characteristics of the block. And in addition to that, it's also important to mention that data that flies in will be determined as hot or random in small block. And if it is random in small block, it will automatically go to the SSD if you do have SSD capacity. And if it's not hot or it's not random or small blocks, it will divert into the next available tier where it would be 10K or 7K drives. Well, I hope you find this video helpful. Thanks very much for joining us.